And welcoming back. Film buff Simon Cockle is back. How are you, man?
I'm not too bad, thanks very much. Like I say, it's a bit of a heat wave in Britain at the minute. It's up in the sort of 90s, and everyone's sweltering, and no one can take it, and no one knows what they're supposed to do because we don't have air conditioning in this country. We literally, we have houses, and then you just open the window if it gets hot. So nobody really has air conditioning.
Oh, well,
So everyone's rushed out to I don't know our equivalent of Home Depot and has bought
oof.
air conditioning units. So and they cost like $400-500. So yeah, so that's where we all are at the minute.
Are you having to also kind of do what some of them are doing in various U.S. states where you gotta, if you want to do laundry, you gotta run it like after 8 or 10 o'clock?
No, actually, I think there's some sort of like we have things like hose pipe bans, so you can't go out and water the roses. You can't do that. But there's nothing that says you can't like just use loads and loads of water and have loads of showers. Not just yet, anyway. But yeah, it's just unbearably sort of summery and like Mediterranean here, which of course being British is just really not, it's not good form. So there you go. We're used to much more sort of moderate climate, and so our tea doesn't get too hot.
Gotcha.
That's a real stereotype, isn't it? I'm British as
Man.
well, and I can't believe I just said that, but there you go.
Well, I mean, I'm not proud of many things in my country, and now, I mean, with all
Mm,
politically divided we become, I'm kind of to the point where I'm just like any patriotic holiday. Just, I mean, it's already bad enough when you're watching a bad movie, some of which are even on this
yeah.
topic tonight, where you're seeing a flag waving
Mm,
and annoying, horns blaring. But now, when even there's a patriotic holiday, is like I don't
mm.
feel happy anymore because I'm just like it doesn't really mean what it really means anymore. Now it's just
What?
everyone's excuse. Let's just be a dick to each other and be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
America, we're better than the
I,
rest of you."
I think in this country, I just think people just can't understand the idea that if you have an election and people vote and then the result is announced, that you wouldn't just go, oh, all right, then. So that was the result. It's kind of like to stand there and say, oh, no, that's not the result. That's a hoax.
And then we see all these radical comedians on all internationally just
Yeah.
making jokes about maybe we should cap people in the streets. It's like that's not. No, you can't.
Yeah.
No, that's not a joke. And
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
if I disagree with you, I'm not going to come up and slap the shit out of you and say you're wrong. I'm going to say I absolutely disagree. I find that border patrol, unsound and what have you. And it's just very
Yeah.
sad when you're having to remind people to just have a double standard. And we've seen
Yeah.
a big lack of it, with people doing shootouts at abortion clinics and
Yeah.
just other just very saddening stuff. It's just like, how did we get to this point? And was it just a
Yeah.
matter of time and it just took 20 years to finally unleash?
Mm.
We always thought it was just like internet trolls or just people who were crazy in the head, who were
Yeah.
ex-cons, who didn't have any friends. And it's like, no, they've been among us. And just now they finally got even more radical.
Yeah, it is sad. You kind of like need a sort of a Disney makeover, sort of.
That's what I'm noticing too. It's like people are now, even when they go to a movie, there's almost always someone who like disagrees with like a progressive instance. And it's like, well, not some of us do actually legit want to think when we go to a movie. We don't want
Yeah,
just the
sure.
predictable formulaic crap. And just because it's a major studio production doesn't mean it's great. But
Yeah.
just because it's indie doesn't mean it's good either.
What wasn't there this big thing about the fact that the new Top Gun movie was hailed as an anti-woke film, and that it was Hollywood have finally got their mojo back and made a film with a lot of white guys and
Yeah, I
women
didn't see it.
as
Well,
sex
actually,
objects.
I
Yeah.
saw it online, and I was just one of those where I was just like, "This is just another soulless reboot of a
Yeah.
'80s movie that pretty much is just." I mean, seeing the increase in people who then applied for the army
Yeah.
after that came out, I'm like, okay, so it did its job. It was just so basically, people want propaganda movies that are
Yeah.
mindless. that have Tom Cruise jumping off buildings, and I'm like, that's not art to me. I want a legit movie that emotionally connects with me and thrills me.
Yeah. But I think in a democracy, you can have films that are, in inverted commas, woke. You can have indie films. You can have mainstream films. You can have rom-coms. You can have action adventure.
Half
like
the time
Top
they're
Gun.
saying woke, but they don't even know what it means. It's just
no, that's
an insult.
right. But the thing is, in a democracy, you should be able to have all of those films, and people should be able to enjoy all of them.
That's true, too. Yes, you can have. I mean, Casablanca is propaganda, and it's a classic. So, I mean,
yeah, but if you go to like see 5 movies and they're all different, and if you're intelligent enough to go, well, I really like the film that taught me about race and taught me about equality, and I also like the dumbass film with Tom Cruise flying the plane. I thought that was cool.
And you could have it too, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the rom-com, and that was good, but the thing is that you appreciate all of those things, and then you can still make informed choices and be intelligent. So that it's not to say that you can't have like Top Gun Maverick, it's just that you have it, but when you go and see it, you realize that what you're watching is a quite idealized view of the world, or that it kind of harks back to films from the 80s and 90s,
jingoistic Reagan era. But there's ones where it's just like I'm just more about go and enjoy it, but don't pretend it's high art. And I think that's where that jerked me off, when everyone was like just giving it high ratings and saying, I enjoyed that so much. I'm like, well, you enjoyed it, but there was literally no story. It was just,
well, no, that's right. But sometimes, sometimes you just want to see spectacle on the screen, don't you? Sometimes you just want to see.
Sometimes,
sometimes like planes zooming around and people, blowing up and whatever. But I think the thing is that if you can balance that up with, seeing other types of films as well, then I don't necessarily see there's any harm in it. But to politicize everything and to
and then get angry when other people politicize something is like, whoa, well, you just opened the door. Don't be mad at other people opened up and chat about this.
I mean, people make all sorts of films because they want to tell stories, and no two stories are the same, unless of course it's a Bond movie, in which case it's basically the same story every time. But I mean, I think the thing is that everyone wants to say something different with film. And I think as an audience, we go to movies because we enjoy them. But I don't think you can take a film and sort of make it fit your particular worldview and say this film is now this is white America and this is what it should be like. It's just literally somebody wanted to tell a story and they chose some characters, and if you think that that's saying something to you, well, then that's great for you. But you maybe need to remove yourself a little bit, from the experience, and try to be a little bit more objective, perhaps. But
objective is definitely what we're going to try and do our best on when it comes to these movies.
Well, some of the films we're going to talk about, it is very hard to be objective about them. But
so long story short, before we begin, are there ones on here that you think aren't deserving? They're dumb, but they're not that bad. They're a mediocre 5 out of 10 at best.
Well, I mean,
forgettable.
If I because I remember the last time I was on when we were talking about Hitchcock, and we were talking about the birds. I spent quite a bit of time talking about Birdemic. In fact, I actually probably spent more time talking about Birdemic than I did the birds. But the thing about Birdemic is it is one of the worst films I've ever seen, and I've seen Manos: The Hands of Fate.
It can't decide, and it was my first Riff Tracks live experience. But for those who don't have the riffing experience, that the main issue with this movie is, aside from just the cheap values, you still at the end of the day don't know if it wants to be a horror movie or an inconvenient truth. What is it trying to say? And
I think it's all of those things and none of them, isn't it?
The main star can't walk normally or have any presence or speak. And ironically, the actress Whitney Moore has gone on to be in a lot of indie films, and I think she's actually pretty decent, but she has nothing to work with. And again, when you have GIF files of eagles being the effects, this is like, you. And then they made a deliberately stupid sequel, a part 2, and it was way worse for me because I was just like, see, you still don't know what's wrong with it. You're just embracing the shit.
I know, they're just repeating all the same mistakes again. I think my favorite moment from Birdemic is when the two of them are in the hotel room, like half naked, and then all of a sudden
he looks so uncomfortable greeting her.
And they just sit on the edge of the bed, and they're both looking in different directions, but they've already put the mattress up against the window, and the curtains are closed. And it's like, what are they looking at? What exactly are they looking at, and why are they going to try and kill them with coat hangers?
You've seen student films that are way more competent, and so of all of these, I have seen 56%. The bottom 100. How many have you seen? I'd
probably say about 25%, and I think, I'll tell you the reason why is because I don't watch bad films. I think I'm quite good at choosing films that I know are going to be good. So I do my kind of due diligence. I look on the Internet Movie Database and look and see. Quite a lot of the time, if you look at the critic score, and if that's in the sort of 60s and 70s, but the audience score is like in the 5s or the 6s, you can probably tell it's going to be quite an arty film that the audience didn't quite get. But actually, if critics liked it,
because there's often some 40% that the general mystery or sci-fi or horror action movie gets that has a decent like 6 or 7 from an audience. So I don't know how much of it is just cynicism or formulaicness, or just that they don't know how to market every movie. And there's been movies which I find very compelling, legal cases or biographies that no one talks about, like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg biography from like 2018. I thought was a good one, and no one saw it, and I was just like, well, it didn't have to win awards to be good.
Well, I mean, take the M. Night Shyamalan films. I mean, if you look from like The Sixth Sense all the way through to, what was the last one he did? Old, wasn't it? Or Time? Old. Old. That's right. And if you look at the Internet Movie Database out of 10, the scores, I think Sixth Sense is somewhere up in the 7s or the 8s, and then they literally just go down a step each time, and they and when you get to like After Earth or the Last Airbender, they're like down in the 3s and 4s, and then they're kind of gradually creeping up. But I think the trouble with one of his films is that they're very high concept, and I think what he does is he plays around with genre, and often the films don't quite fit the genre they're meant to that they're advertising.
It would have worked better in a Twilight Zone episode rather than a full-length movie.
Well, take The Village, for example. I mean, The Village is an example of a film where, what kind of film am I watching? Is it a horror film? It seems like a horror film. And then is it like, is it The Crucible by Arthur Miller? Or what am I watching? Or is it like a psychological, are they all dead? Is this heaven? I don't know. And then, of course, without wanting to spoil it, you get the big reveal at the end.
Makes you wonder why you even watched it.
But the thing is that the films are so well made, and they're so the acting's so great. Well, generally speaking, but they're such great movies. I mean, even The Happening. I mean, I love that film, and I happily watch it again.
Although, I can't get into it, but I understand why it's gotten
it's kind of Hitchcock by numbers. But I think the point about the film is that, apart from the fact that the reveal happens halfway through the film, which is a bit odd, and also the fact that the actors were all instructed to behave like children. So when they give these really weird performances, because he said to them, I want you to kind of react as though you're children and you don't really know what you're doing.
Some bizarre direction.
So there's kind of quirkiness about it, but it's just the atmosphere that he creates. It's just the,
He definitely had the camera work down. I think I turned away from it just because the death scenes just took me out of it. Like something from a goofy 80s slasher, not from a...
The bit with the lawnmower is my favorite, I think.
Oh, I just can't stop guffawing at that one. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here?
But what's interesting, I mean, coming back to Birdemic as well, is that the films that we've just been talking about in Birdemic, whatever the quality of the film, we're entertained by them. So for me, and it's like The Room and like Manos, The Hands of Fate. The thing is that these films are so much fun to watch. And the thing is that when they appear in the bottom 100, you kind of go, yeah, because, you know, Manos, The Hands of Fate is so badly made. It's so badly edited. The acting's so terrible. I mean, it's the same with Birdemic. And it's all really badly dubbed as well. But the thing is that they're so much fun to watch.
And they had a concept that could have worked. And yet it backfired because the person behind it just had no business being in the chair that is, you know, the director's room. But you know, the room is even funnier because you tell people about it and they're like, well, I gotta see this, where can I find it? And it was even more bizarre here in the US because I would see celebrities going to midnight screenings of it, and it almost kind of was Rocky Horror 2.0, where they would be talking about it, but when you ask them for like a objective opinion, you never got a straight answer, like whether it was good or bad or so bad it's good. They're just like, just go see it. And it's just so crazy how it would show up on Adult Swim programming block here in the States after like Tim and Eric and Robot Chicken. And it was kind of, they used to use it as a Valentine's Day prank. I kid you not. So half the time you're watching this, I'm like, what am I watching? Is this a bad Skinamax crap fest? What is this? Is this a Sci-Fi Channel movie? What is it?
I mean, there's something interesting that connects Birdemic and The Room in that the author that made the film came from outside the United States, but had a real love of Hollywood. So
just like Samurai Cop, they had no concept of how to speak properly. They did weird stuff in real life that they already got a bizarre look, and no one knew where he came from. There's a funny reference that it's believed that Tommy Wiseau might actually be D.B. Cooper.
Oh, right. Oh, that's interesting.
I'm like, I hope it's true. I know it's not, but if it is, that would be amazing. And Jiggly is also on here, and I feel like that is the unofficial sequel to that. They both came out that same year, and that, I kid you not, that was like one of the first movies that like when it came out, it was like in theaters for like 2 weeks, and then like usually it takes like 5-6 months before you see it on cable and the movie channels and pay-per-view. It did not take long, and next thing I know, I'm seeing on ads, you know, coming to pay-per-view and stars. I'm like, I thought it just came out, and the confusion kept elongating me because around that same time there were other movies that were actually good but bombed. Like there was David Mamet's Spartan, the spy film with Val Kilmer, which was critiqued as being one of the best movies of 2004 that no one saw. Like the marketing backfired and everything, and I was confused. I'm like, hey, it's already on cable TV. I thought it takes 3 to 4, 5 years for something to finally,
well, that's right. Well, nowadays it can be
it's 2 years. They're making marketing gigs right up front, but it was confusing to me because I was just like, what's going on here? And Jiggly is just very frustrating because there's been rumors in recent years that, Martin Brest, very accomplished guy who used to be good with, comedy dramas, just was taken out of the room.
Yeah. And
the editing room, not the room. And him from Midnight Run and Cinema Woman and Beverly Hills Cop. And it's just, this is a movie that it wants so badly to be Tarantino. And yet you see shades of what you feel might have been something like Get Shorty or something. And then you just can tell that the quality has considerably just dried up because just none of it connects one to the other. And you're like, I feel like there's something that does connect this all, but it's not being very well told. And you look at the trailer it looks like a straight up like romantic comedy. And so
Yeah.
even more misleading. It's like when you mislead people, you deserve all the blame for just not, being able to make sense of any of this. Now, obviously, yes, there's a lot of the bad, really unwatchable spoof movies on here by Friedberg and Seltzberg and Adam Sandler and other shit. And I expected that. Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, obviously those aren't movies, but some of them are interesting in that they're kind of movies that you would put on maybe if you wanted a party to end and no one's taking the big hint that it's time to leave. So I would totally put on something like Glitter or Baby Geniuses or one of these Jaws sequels or Human Centipede even, if I just wanted to tell everyone, hey guys, I'm locking the door, you gotta leave. And so Shaquille O'Neal's movies are on here. That's funny. The Emoji Movie was a big flop, I remember here. And mainly I'm gonna try and keep this a little positive. So I'm gonna talk about movies that I did see in the theater,
right,
that were kind of critic proof in a way. Like people were gonna go see it because it was advertised as a easygoing Friday or Sunday night comedy. So some of these there is no defending them because again, like Simon has very heavily hinted, there's just too much bizarre film grain to where it's impossible to even get a proper Blu-ray remaster. There's so much incompetent cameramen and sound syncing, and obviously the U-Ball movies are on here because a lot of people are missing the point in that it's not just that it's an incomprehensible based on a video game. It's also just that he makes movies that are just, I get that some people like to mock him and everything, but I personally can't stand any of his movies because just the music is just really bad. It's like nails on a chalkboard, and he always likes to act like it's someone else's fault. And it's like, dude, you made this shit fest. Don't even like, it's not even Sci-Fi Channel or schlock. It's just like a student film that you end up not submitting to class because even you're not proud of it, and it's not worth the grade.
What was that one that came out recently with I've forgotten the name now. It was Monster Hunters, it was called. It was
animated?
No, it wasn't animated. It probably should have been, but it was based on a video game.
Yes, that
you know the
I
one.
saw some people defending that one, and I was already not. I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm not gonna like this because I prefer Paul W.S. Anderson when he did something that was a throwback to earlier cinema like Pompeii or Event Horizon. And this ain't it. This is just another excuse to use 3D effects. And when you have a giant all-star cast and you don't even make use of your actors, it's so incomprehensibly lit and shot. It's just another bad Alien Predator clone.
I tell you what, I've got this major problem with CGI, right? So you remember Ray Harryhausen?
Stop motion and classic.
That's right. And the thing is that I mean, I don't know from I wasn't watching films in the 50s and 60s because I wasn't born then, but I can imagine when in the 70s and 80s, when I watched his films, I remember thinking they're models and somebody's moving them, and I understand how stop animation works. And sometimes it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of scary, or I kind of get why that would be scary for that character. But it was like, yeah, they're just models, really, aren't they?
They really were just sword and sandal type epics, and then those were the money shot, so to speak, that everyone remembered in the last 10 minutes.
Now the thing is about CGI now. So coming back to that Monster Hunters film, so this isn't a huge reveal. There's a big monster in it at the beginning, and the thing is,
couldn't tell.
All you do, I think it comes out the sand or something, and all you do is you just sit there going, "That's CGI." You don't sort of think, "Wow, that's a really big monster."
It's very
gets
mindless.
Killed.
It's not like Jurassic Park where it makes good use of props and mind-bending CGI, and it's telling a story. And it's not like Terminator or Die Hard where the action moves the movie forward, and instead it's just a set piece that you're just going to end up just feeling, like you say, very disconnected because very little sense went into it. Unless you're 10
it's
years
not
old.
real. I mean, that's the things, it's not real. You know that it's trying to be real, and it's almost like photorealism, but it's like that kind of uncanny valley thing. You because it's not real, it isn't real. So it's just computer generated graphics.
Yeah.
And so many films that just rely on CGI.
It gets even more frustrating when you realize like there's bad CGI in otherwise good or mediocre movies like superhero films and even period pieces for where they needed pickup shots. But if it gets to the point where it's just taking everyone out of it, then yes, something's got to be said for that, because it's like, well, why am I here if no one wanted to actually care and make a movie that?
But yeah, I mean, it literally is just the stop motion animation of the 21st century, and nobody's fooled by it. And I don't know. I mean, the only time it's ever worked is I seem to remember, was it August Osage County, and it was and it was shot in something like the autumn, and all the leaves were brown, so they digitally changed them back to green. But you wouldn't know it. You just, because you wouldn't be expecting it, and you were
already invested in the story, so it's just like, okay.
It was a great film. And then you go on the Internet Movie Database and look in the trivia section, and they say they use CGI to change the leaves, and it's like, oh wow, that's really clever. But I mean, if you go and watch King Kong versus Godzilla or whatever, you know that neither of them are real, and they're not really smashing up Fenway Park, and And God forbid if they ever did, me being a Red Sox fan as well, if they ever did smash up Fenway Park. But there you go.
Those are even harder ones, because they just make me wish it was back to basics, where it was a guy in a suit, with a pretty armored suit and models and everything. Because there is something about that attention to detail where you actually, even if it's not 100% convincing, you at least love the effort put into it. And CGI, they're now basically outsourcing. They're just having a cheap Chinese or South Korean company basically work with them, and then just try and make it for cheap. And it's like, well, the cheap definitely shows, and I know you didn't intend that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you take the CGI out of like half of these films, they'd probably be in the bottom 100 themselves.
Because, totally. If there wasn't any nostalgia, if you took away most of the budget, and that's what like you, I do find that annoying how half the time we have to tell these people it's just like the plot. It's no different than a Z grade movie, on an antenna channel. It take away that award-winning star, and it is so funny how so many people will watch any of these movies here. I'm like, but it's the same as Godzilla 1998 or
it's just the same. But I get tired of CGI. I get tired of being shown something incredible and then being made to go, look at this, isn't it incredible?
If it doesn't hold up on repeat viewing, that's one thing. Like the CGI I really dig in those new Planet of the Apes films. Was it as up to date in repeat viewings? Probably not, but at least it was telling a story and you were invested, as opposed to like that's all it has to offer, and take it away, there's no movie. It's just as bad as porn without the what. And it's just annoying how but I am annoyed by even some of these other submissions. Like there's movies on here I don't even remember seeing, but I have clearly seen because I gave it a rating. Like there's this movie from Netflix called The Open House, and I'm just like, well, I don't remember it. That's how forgettable a psycho thriller it was. And there's other ones on here that are like just so forgettable. I'm like, why would you even put them on here? Or to even consider them a movie is already insult to injury. Obviously no one was going to find anything good about a Baby Geniuses film. Those are just bottom of the barrel. But Uli Lomo is another one who I feel is like a U-Ball opponent. It basically, this German guy, he trained under Rainer Werner Fassbinder.
He's quality.
Rainer, no denying his talent for just artsy. He's like German John Cassavetes. He knows how to make great character studies, but long story short, this Uli Edel guy was training under him. Uli Lommel, not Edel. Edel's cool, but Lommel is annoying because he just makes not even Full Moon Entertainment has made anything this, barely, amateur watchable. Like he just does so many movies that are just like incomprehensible, poorly edited, and just make you go, hey, at least Michael Bay doesn't give a shit and just makes an over the top movie. This guy makes movies literally in his backyard and then tries, like, he only focuses basically on the cover. And you're like, and it's also annoying because a lot of these movies also have a lot of fake reviews clearly made by the filmmakers. And
that's bad.
They used to do a lot of, back when there were boards, just back and forth saying, maybe you're just jealous. It's like, okay, well, now I wish we had what, eyes we had back then, especially with cell phones and screen captures, because they really did kind of goof up IMDb. Now, I'm sorry you had to deal with stuff like Dragon Ball Evolution from Justin Kelly, because I remember when Justin Kelly trailer came out, they're just capitalizing, it was again, it was a movie based on a gimmick, but there wasn't any actual material. Let's take two people who won the latest contest of American Idol, and just seeing the trailer, I was like, I'm not seeing this. I've only maybe seen fast forwarded through it. It's not a watchable movie by any means. And I'm not going to blame any of the filmmakers, because you look at their credits, they do their guns for hire. They do TV movies of the week and award shows and spectacles and miniseries. They're not serious, I don't think, in any way, shape, or form. And so it's just frustrating because, again, it all goes back to the script. And if there's nothing there and producers are going to mess with it and just say, add all this in movie advertising, then you're screwed already. Like, I'm looking at the writer, and they previously did a bunch of sitcoms and comic relief specials and Spice Girls movie.
I would probably say, of all the films I watched, it was the one that made me the most angry. I think, it was
so soulless.
It was so soulless. I mean, I guess one of the things is that we don't have spring break in this country. I mean, we have sort of like, drugs, and we have like, knives, and we have kind of people having sex and STDs, but we don't necessarily put that on the calendar and make it an
in
event,
that order.
That order, So we don't, so I mean, for British people looking at films with spring break, it does look like some kind of sort of sleazy riot going on a beach kind of thing. And I'm sure it's not like that. I'm sure it's far more cultural than just like, shotgunning beer and
but that's so true too. Everyone feels like when it's got to be something like this, people got to burst into song. I'm looking at the trivia, and it says it set a record for the shortest gap between theatrical premiere and home video release, 29 days. It lasted 1 month.
I mean, the whipped cream bikini contest seemed to be like, the apogee of their cultural sort of like vision. That was the thing. You could stage an opera on the beach, some Shakespeare, you could do a poetry reading, but having a whipped cream bikini contest, that seemed to be where everything was at.
I'm so glad I put it over my mind. But if anyone is going to torture me with this movie, I will give in. I will say, you win. Take my credit card. I don't care.
I'm sure it's used by the CIA as a torture method. But I have to say, the most entertaining thing about the film was that there was a character in it called Alexa. So every time a character says, "Hey Alexa," my Alexa would go off and say, "Yes, what can I help you with?" So I thought that was really clever. So it's like sort of 30 years, a sort of a joke that only works kind of 30 years in advance from when the film was made.
Right.
So you wonder whether or not they set it up knowing that in 30 years' time, people would have,
I'd be in on the joke. And I guess
other than that, it was terrible. So bad.
There's this one producer who a lot of his movies are surprisingly on the bottom 100. Mm-hmm. And that is producer Lawrence Kasanoff. He's done literally all these movies that again are based on toys. So you already know going in, he doesn't have any vision other than what can I do that will make your kids, beg their parents to rent this nonstop, or to where they'll just buy it and say, shut up. And it's like, I can understand these Legos and Bionicle, but then you got just, he's getting some money from Mortal Kombat, and yes, he did do Annihilation on there. That movie has its fans, but I think everyone who's seen it knows it's trashy and it's mindless. And this one that I'm really annoyed by, and keep in mind, I have only seen a bunch of clips on various bad movie review sites and videos, but from what I did see, it's still very frustrating to me. It's this movie called Food Fight, and basically a bunch of food brands just create their own city in a supermarket. The main issue is just that the animation does feel very unfinished. Like it should just be, it would be a okay PlayStation game, but it is definitely not a finished movie.
PlayStation 1.
Yeah, 1,000%. N64, PlayStation 1. And I am getting very frustrated with this one because there is a talented voice cast. Everybody. Eva Longoria, Christopher Lloyd, Wayne Brady, Ed Asner, Jerry Stiller, even Greg Ellis, who you might know from 24 and his various Star Trek appearances. And I'm just one of those where it's just like, see, okay, someone had an agent that sold them this, but yet the quality is not there. So this injured all kinds of people's brands because it's not, this animation just looks very sketchy because it was just given to the cheapest of the cheap. And
it could be money laundering. It could be just an exercise in.
It could be used car salesman. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Maybe it was a tax dodge or something. Make
there
a film
you go.
and then that
he owed a debt, and he just said, "Okay, well, you got it." So Katz is on here, and I forgot who gave the funny review. I think it was on BuzzFeed or whatever. My sister screenshotted it to me, and they were saying the only Ian McKellen must have killed a guy. And this was his blackmail. You got to do this movie if you don't want us to report.
It was just, I think somebody said it was the film where just a lot of cats told you who they were, one after the other. And that was it. But
a lot of people were looking forward to it with how bad it was going to be. And I have seen barely 5 seconds of it. I had to fast forward for the fucking thing. And my issue is how insulting Universal was to viewers, to not only just baby them, but then say we're going to re-release it with better effects like a week later. That's where I'm like, don't insult my money, don't insult my intelligence as any kind of person. And yet so many people played along with it. They wanted to go and suffer through it and mock it. I'm like, no, that'll convince them to make more of this awful.
It was freaky to watch. It was disturbing. Some of the images that we saw, it was like something out of a David Lynch film.
Batman and Robin is on here, but see, that's the thing. That in Battlefield Earth, they have cool art direction 1 minute and then revolting images the next. That's an issue of too many cooks in the kitchen and ego. And then, like you say, you have Monos, and then you have even Hercules in New York, where you got literally a filmmaker making a movie and then having it be taken over by a totally different crew. And again, like you say, language translation and everyone being forced to do it out of, again, like you say, tax concerns. So again, soullessness and unintentional amusement, it's there. There's a lot of other ones on here that I doubt most people have seen, like Daddy Day Camp, and there's some direct-to-video movies that I think are just mediocre at best. Like Neverending Story Free has its fans just because it's one of Jack Black's first appearances, but that's just it. Like then there's some ones where, like you say, the images are insulting enough to where it can't hide behind, it's just a kids movie factor. Like Shark Boy and Lava Girl and Spy Kids 4, there's no denying they're pretty shitty.
Well, it's funny because the Shark Boy and Laser Girl, my daughter, who's 11 now, she really liked that film. She used to watch it quite a lot when she was a kid.
Fair enough.
And it's Robert Rodriguez, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm obviously I've seen his sort of grown up films, and so I kind of looked at it thinking, Christ, that looks completely bizarre compared
It doesn't
to the
help
stuff
that he's very reliant on working with Tarantino, and when he's not working with Tarantino with Star Wars, he seems to kind of go off his rocker a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, the kids, like I say, my daughter liked it, so I was surprised that was in the bottom 100. To be honest,
funny is Rodriguez's kids don't like this movie. He made it for them.
Well, that is not good news. Baby Geniuses. I've written down on this piece of paper in front of me. Please make it stop.
That was definitely what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah.
We'll return after these messages.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gavsey, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
We let things pile up in the DVR, we add them to our queues, we wait for the DVDs and Blu-rays. We time shift. The Time Shifters Podcast. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, superheroes, comedy, action, film, television, maybe some not-so-current events. Find us on iTunes or at timeshifterspodcast.com.
Cool thing about Blind Knowledge is we are in multiple countries. We are worldwide all across the globe. We are in the US, we are in the UK, we are in Canada, Germany, India, Japan. We're in Australia, y'all. BlindKnowledge.com. Now back to the feature presentation.
Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, all things that we love, all manga that were originally published in the legendary magazine Weekly Shonen Jump.
But not every series can run for 300 chapters and have a hit anime. This is David.
This is Jordan.
We're the hosts of Shonen Flop. Each episode we look at manga that ran in Jump that didn't quite make it.
We discuss what it did wrong, what it did right, how the series could have turned itself around, and ultimately, was it a flop or not?
We're on all your favorite podcast apps, and you can find us at shonenflop.com.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
I mean, the bit with the baby walking down the street with the cigar in its mouth. I mean, I don't even know
what was really bad about that one is my folks got it from the rental library.
Yeah,
my siblings who we're all growing up. We have no sense of quality at this time.
Yeah,
we're seeing this movie. Yeah, and what's so funny is I didn't see it, so I'm watching it, and then halfway in, I'm like, "Oh, make it stop!" Yeah. And that was definitely a hate watch. There's some other trash on here that, again, I can see why it would have fans, but there's also no denying that its stories would work better as a unfinished comic book rather than any kind of cinematic movie. Like,
yeah,
I've never seen Teen Wolf 2, but I know it has its fans. Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas, that's a mediocre kids movie, which is a shame because there are some performances. There's Mark Addy, who you might know from a few different Irish Britain comedies. I think he does an okay Fred Flintstone. It's just the production is there. It's just there's some miscastings and it's too dumb even by kids movie standards, which is a shame because there's some inspired performances. I mean, there's even freaking Joan Collins, Alan Cumming, and even Thomas Gibson, from Criminal Minds and Dharma and Greg. So it's just like it's there. It's just it's kind of, it might have been better had it gone more of a Space Jam route where it blended live action with animation and felt like a music video. But
I don't know. I mean, I've written down here. I've got some theories about these terrible films, and I've got I've got three categories. So the first is terrible ideas. So films that were cynical,
Crossroads.
money making exercises. So from Justin to Kelly, disaster movie, movie 43.
Ooh,
they were just terrible ideas.
Some
from
of
the
these
get-go.
Bollywood movies definitely are on here.
Yeah. So that's the first category. The second one is films that started off well, but during production went wrong and they couldn't be stopped because there was so much money invested. So it's a bit like Macbeth when he says that he's so mired in blood, that to go forward or backward would be exactly the same. That they get so far into a film, they've spent so much money that they can't stop. So they have to keep going and sort of recover whatever they can.
Even though it's not working, we must continue. We're freezing, but we should keep venturing on into the wild because there's no one helping us from this far on.
Yeah.
What's your third category?
And the third category is basically films that are kind of great ideas, maybe not brilliant, but just, good ideas. But the filmmaking was so inept. So you've got Manos, you've got Birdemic, you've got The Room. So people came up with a great idea. It might have been ripped off Hitchcock, or it might have been ripped off of Rebel Without a Cause. But I mean, it was a workable idea, but they were just so bad at actually realizing it because they just weren't professionals, or they didn't know what they were doing.
The whole concept of Bucky Larson, who doesn't love a good movie within a movie? And then you have all these very awful comedians and all these talented character actors, wasting their time. Like, Stephen Dorff and Christina Ricci have zero reason to be in this awful movie. And its main issue is that, again, it's dealing with taboo topics and everything, but it doesn't know how to sample it and make it funny unless you're, again, just 5 years old and you find any kind of pants dropping funny. It's just like you say, just catering to the lowest common denominator. Then there's definitely one that could definitely be in the second or third category is definitely Dungeons and Dragons, where it wanted to be a giant epic, and there's some inspired over the top acting for that's no different than an 80s trashy movie, but unfortunately it was given to an incompetent filmmaker who's made a lot of hackneyed horror movies, and then a husband and wife team who the whole story is very surprisingly very similar to Super Mario Brothers, which I'm surprised is not on here. Where is just like, again, if you're gonna make a game, it should not be just a passion project. It should be someone who wants to make a coherent narrative. And unfortunately, a lot of these ones are on here because they really are just annoying Easter eggs. Like, there's plenty of superhero movies I would gladly put on here. Most of the ones on here, though, for the most part, are just spoofs or just unfunny movies many few of us had seen. The only few movies I will actually defend to some degree. I will admit I still like Master of Disguise. Is it perfect? No. There's a lot of jokes that don't work in that one. I just enjoyed it because of the passion, and it felt like an Eddie Murphy movie that just went to Dana Carvey. It unfortunately does have some lacking production values as a result of Adam Sandler's company being involved, but I can get through it any day. It as stupid Sunday night fun that I show the kids compared to any of these other ones like Crossroads or Free Ninjas Free, where I'm just like, just make it stop. Like Police Academy 7 is on here because it is definitely the weakest of the franchise, and the humor is very abbreviated, and there's really nothing that stands out other than a bunch of British actors playing Russians. Bratz, once again, just another product placement movie. That's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4. I've barely seen an inch of. It's very unbearable, but I know there are some people who love how crazy stupid it is. So it's another weird predicament. Like, still, I have laughed nonstop at, but it's not a good movie. But it is just so hysterical seeing how Shaquille O'Neal is trying to do his best Schwarzenegger impersonation. And it's just a bizarre movie. Like, it could have easily been like a 90s TV show for UPN, but yet it's confusing in that, again, the tone is all over the place. Is it trying to be the Meteor Man, or is it trying to be Batman? What is it trying to be? Oh man. I will admit I do like Ballistic Ecks versus Sever. Obviously, it's not a Taken or Born Identity movie, but
right.
I've been able to at least re-see it and its issue. I've actually interviewed the director of it on this podcast, and it still is. It got taken away from them by the producers, but
yeah,
it's an okay assassin movie. If you get to the thick of it, it's just got a few awkward edits in between there. Now, Speed 2, obviously, it's a pretty laughable disaster movie where no one would. The two leads don't have charisma, and other than William Dafoe over acting, there's really nothing to go on.
I always thought what would be a brilliant idea for the sequel is that if somebody puts a bomb on a bus, and basically it's triggered if the bus goes over 50 miles an hour. So they just park it and walk off and, like, you know, go to a Starbucks and have coffee and just look at the bus through the window and just have a chat.
There you go.
I just thought that would be such a brilliant idea. It would be like, don't move the bus. And then somebody gets in it and then accidentally drives it really fast and then it blows up. But like, they all know that they shouldn't go too fast in it. Like,
Right.
So that's so they actually, after they've had the coffee, they get in it and drive it around a bit at like 45, and then they go almost, and then they just like park it up again and just
there you go.
Yeah. So it'd be very meta. Be a very meta.
A movie within a movie, and they're like,
yeah,
wasn't that the same thing that was on the 6 o'clock news? And then they wake up and it's a producer's bad nightmare. He's like, oh my god, I thought I just wrote the worst movie sequel.
Well, that's it. They could be driving up the flyover, and then they can see that it's not completed and there's a big gap, so they just stop and turn around and go back.
I love your idea.
You see what I mean? You see, because people would pay to see that, because they'd be expecting an explosion. And it would never happen.
Make this movie now, please.
Yeah, I definitely will do. Yeah, I definitely.
Oh man, so what are some of the more confusing movies on here? Because like there's Mac and Me.
Yeah.
And long story short, much like Hobgoblins, it's a Mystery Science Theater episode I will never rewatch just because I hate the movie that much. Yes, I can listen to the soundtrack because it sounds like Whitney Houston, but the main issue is it's not even the fact that it's a cheap E.T. knockoff. It's not even the fact that they keep using stock footage of this. It's a running joke on Conan, believe it or not, where they take the fall scene whenever Paul Rudd's promoting a movie and they play that clip instead. It's just the main fact that, like you say, there's just too many corporate movies. It's like McDonald's, no business making a movie, and just constantly is like, we have nowhere else to go. Oh, let's go to a restaurant. That's clearly McDonald's. And it's just like, well, so this movie could literally be a decent short film.
Yeah.
But you spent all of it literally on unknown actors because, you know, the budget went nowhere, and just endless product placement. And it does really, you feel like a knife is just going through your stomach half the time because you're just like, dude, I get it. You're trying to do in-movie advertising, but you're not telling anything that connects point A to B to C to D, and you're just getting an F for effort.
Well, that's the Emoji Movie, isn't it? I mean, that's just
the Emoji Movie. The Wicker Man is another one where there's Neil LaBute is known for being very sneaky, kind of like Michael Gondry, and experimental, kind of like Soderbergh, and that's another movie which seems to have its whole premise kind of undermined, where you're really not sure of the tone. How am I supposed to react to this movie? What am I supposed to be shocked? Am I supposed to be guffawing? Because I'm definitely guffawing, but it's not for the right reasons. And this is definitely the start of just many bad direct-to-video worthy efforts of Nick Cage. And this is just a movie that pisses me off just because I don't know how to feel. And there's just one thing you just don't do. Like Superman 4 is another one, just forced cameos, more product placement, actors forced to come back under contract, a filmmaker who really has nothing to contribute. And then just, again, like you say, there's just too many people who are making movies that could have been fun, could have been decent, could have been okay. And it's not even so much the production value as it is just there's lots of footage cut and the transitions alone are what undermine it, because you're like, whoa, what? How'd they get from here to there? You know? And don't give me the whole, it's a comic book movie. That's not an excuse for any kind of decent storytelling. Catwoman, it's on here because it so badly wants to be like The Crow or Batman, and its main issue is, I mean, there are moments where I do, much like Batman and Robin, just guffaw, but then there's a lot of shadiness associated with this movie. It's like, again, Halle Berry, good A-lister, and it's just could have worked in the role. The main issue is that Patoff is kind of a hackneyed filmmaker, best known for being a French music video guy, and there are endless shots of, I kid you not, asses, and I'm just like, that's not storytelling. That's literally,
there's an audience for that, but
this is a Victoria's Secret commercial. This is not a movie.
It's not exposition, is it?
Yeah, it's just barely even scenery. It's just like, and what I thought was really lame is when Sharon Stone was doing a bunch of other shitty movies shortly after this, she was, one of her co-stars considered for that movie was Benjamin Bratt, and she had seen him in this movie and thought he was a bad actor. I'm like, no. You don't get to hate on Benjamin Bratt. He had nothing to work with here. Don't go hating on Traffic and Law and Order.
So where do you stand on Barbed Wire then?
Oh, Jesus. So it has some decent pyrotechnics, and Jango Fett is in it, but that's it, literally it. Like, it is definitely a direct-to-video movie that somehow got a theatrical release. It's one of those, had they even switched around a cast, it might have worked better, but it can't even, like you say, it's another movie with a compromised tone. Like, 1 minute it's campy, the next minute it's getting very serious with the music cues, and you're just like, did no one care? Was this just made as junk food, but it's too junky even by junk food standards? What's going on here?
It's interesting because I watched it after having watched Pam and Tommy on Disney. So the thing is, I think if I'd done it the other way round, I would have gone, it's a terrible film and she's a terrible actor and it's just, dreadful and whatever. But having watched Pam and Tommy and seen, what she had to deal with, and then obviously, the sort of genesis of the film and how it was a vehicle for her. I just think I think I had more sympathy for the film, and it's a little bit like Marilyn Monroe in Some Like It Hot. When they talk about Billy Wilder being the auteur, but in actual fact, it's Marilyn Monroe. It's her film. It's built around her. Everything is about everything is seen through the kind of lens of her, and that's the power that she has, because she might not be a brilliant actor, but the thing is that it's a vehicle for her, and as a vehicle
played
it works.
Around her. And yes, that is true. There are a lot of movies which have a 50-50 rating because of once it was started out as a serious movie, and then it became a totally different movie when different personas got attached to it. The only exception I can think of is probably Men of War, which is still a John Sayles movie, even though he's not in the chair. And even though Dolph Lundgren and a bunch of other B movie guys are in it, it is not a B movie per se. It's just a very Akira Kurosawa-esque drama. But it's interesting how, yes, there's plenty of these other movies where they just don't tweak it enough and they don't play around the various actors and have fun. And like you say, this is a movie where no one seems comfortable and focusing too. You can only force yourself to watch it in a mindless way, but you, the viewer, should not have to cater to that level. You should be able to go along for the ride. And it's annoying because, again, just like many of these other movies, they're built around a beautiful person who can't carry a movie or product placement. Or with the case of Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas, they're so heavy-handed in their messaging that, they might as well have done an Avatar knockoff. It's just that bad. There's just so little essence that's there. And obviously some of these Bollywood movies are on here because their production values and tone is all over the place, but
they're so loud, aren't they?
They're so loud, and it's not something we can say about, say, Left Behind or Troll 2, which were just bad ideas to begin with, but became infamous movies. Yeah, no, but very good. True, so true. People do like to act like it's just one or another that makes or breaks a movie, and it's just like you can, like Francis Ford Coppola famously did it in The Godfather, where he, the messenger guy was an actual guy doing mob bodyguard and wrestling on the side, and he wasn't an actor, but so he told the guy, go memorize your lines, and he used that. He actually secretly filmed him to make it look like, this guy is get nervous before telling a rival gangster some bad news, and that's very meta. But sometimes you got to use those outtakes, you got to use those other things, and you got to do atypical stuff that because I make stuff all the time with my friends. There's plenty of them who have plenty of experience on their belt. There's plenty of them who this is their first time out, but they have charisma. And I think what is severely lacking with a lot of these infamous movies is that there's just was much like there was the whole, like you say, robotic, just continue on until the factory mill breaks. There was so much lack of confidence. And honestly, confidence can make anything better. You can, Tony Dennison of The Closer said in a recent interview that where he got today on so many hit TV shows was, instead of don't worry if you're good or not, just do the part justice. Worry about your craft, how you're going to go about it, and don't worry about the audition. Don't worry about this. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they do get greedy. And like you say, some of these, they were inevitably going to accept just because they either had, Cuba Gooding Jr. and Nicolas Cage and a lot of these other guys are on these bad movies because, again, they bought too many mansions that it was going to happen. I haven't seen the Black Christmas 2019 version. I'm sure it's schlock, but it's annoying also to me, also even seeing movies like Dragon Wars, because that could have been something, and instead it's just, even with okay graphics, it's just an incomprehensible movie where you're just not sure what's really going on. It's just no point A to B, and like you say, you're gonna lose interest because unless you are like a diehard monster completist, it's just very hard to get through. It's just very frustrating because there's so much boring shit in between that. And that's the other thing, is like the worst thing you can do is just bore people to death to where you're just like, why should I continue? Why what am I going to learn that I didn't already learn? Or in many ways, there's even, like you say, there's films that you watch that give so much away, to where it's like they broke so many rules of storytelling, to where it's just like it's just frustrating because you just feel like you're a 7-year-old who happens to be a rich kid who got all this money to make a poorly told, good-looking piece of shit. It's just
I mean, with the fact that the 3-act structure is so ubiquitous in Hollywood, and Blake Snyder,
they barely even make it to the second act. Basically, they're worried about how many explosions can we get in between the various segments, just from point A to point B. And like you say, they barely even make it past point A. It just gets that undermining.
Surely the easiest thing to do is to get the script right. So I mean, if you can get all your beats in the right order,
film some B-roll that also tells the story and other takes, ask for everyone's 2 cents. And a lot of these, though, for the most part, are producer hack jobs where it might have been an okay, fast New Orleans or Atlanta shoot, or in some cases even Canada. But the main issue is that, they were too busy trying to capitalize on a scandalous star like Lindsay Lohan or Paris Hilton. And then, like you say, it could have been a 5 out of 10 even, but then it became, like you say, just even more indecipherable, because the more people go in and tinker with it, the more the tone changes, even with a simple frame cut. It's just, there's so, and a lot of them also fall victim to just using any popular music at the time. And again, the music is not telling the story. It's just there to sell, stupid record. And a lot of these we will never see just because we don't even know where we would even find them, even if we didn't know the rating or care about it.
Right.
The main issue is more so that, like you have really hit the nail on the head, is it's just a lot of these are very unorganized, and it's changed a hell of a lot. There used to be so many other movies that were like meh, it was like, that's good for the right crowd, not my thing. And it's like that might appeal to a Tarantino crowd, or that might be a Paul Thomas Anderson, M. Night Shyamalan, Chris Nolan type movie. But are there any movies from the top 250 that you might put in here?
Well, I've got a list in front of me of films that I'd like to put in, because I'm not 100% certain whether or not they weren't in the bottom 100 already, but I'm sure I checked. But Shark Avalanche.
I've never heard of this. What is this movie?
So basically, the synopsis is Avalanche Sharks, or Shark Avalanche, tells the story of a bikini contest that turns into a horrifying affair when it is hit by a shark avalanche. So I think they're having a bikini contest in the mountains, and then coming down the mountain is a huge avalanche, of which inside it are sharks. So wow. I mean, what else would you expect to have in an avalanche but sharks? So I mean, you've got bikini competition, you've got snow, you've got sharks, and you've got avalanche. So I mean, what's not to like already? I mean, imagine going in and doing the pitch on that. Imagine doing your log line for that one. But I mean, I'm pretty certain that doesn't appear in the bottom 100.
No, there's a lot that I'm actually surprised aren't on here. Like I would have thought Ishtar would have been on here. That's a very mediocre satirical comedy that has 2 greats, just totally wasted.
Yeah. Movie 43, which I've just mentioned.
I thought it was on here. I swear it was on here last year.
Yeah. I mean, I the only one I can recall, because I seem to remember, because it's like a portmanteau film, isn't it? And there's like a linking device that there's this washed up producer who's trying to pitch the most insane stories that he can. And so one of them involves he's in The Greatest Showman. I've forgotten his name now.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, that's it. Yeah, Hugh Jackman, but he has testicles under his jaw.
Yeah, it's just like skits that go way too far.
Yeah,
and it's annoy
like
you.
I mean, you must have been on horse tranquilizers to kind of come up with that idea, but then they actually went and made it. And I just can't believe somebody said, "Here's your script, Hugh. Look, there you've got testicles on your neck." And then Hugh goes, "Oh, that sounds really great. Yeah, I'm definitely going to make that movie."
Well, and again, too many cooks. There's like 5 different people attached to it, and some of it are just unfinished movies that were kept in the can. And you've all read the story, guys, about how they wanted to try and take their name off it, and just like, and the Bruce Willis movies here, Breach and Cosmic Sin, are frustrating because they're just very unfinished. What looked like a Halo video game segment, and.
But what we know about Bruce now is quite sad, isn't it? That at the end of his,
just taken advantage of, and he had like maybe one more year before he became financially irrelevant, so he had to make all these goofy looking movies.
Yeah. So I mean, that's quite a sad story.
And the
there.
More frustrating thing to me is like they have actors that have been good in other things, not giving their best performances, and then they have other schlocky actors and D-listers.
Yeah.
Also, so it's like it's just not a good combo. You got to have everyone be on the same page, and they would have been okay maybe as a TV show, as a C grade like wannabe Stargate or Highlander show. But the main issue is just, again, there's a better cut in just even every other movie. Like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, I have guffawed at. It is a very cheap schlock. But then there's other ones like Who's Your Caddy, which I have not seen all the way, but I have seen clips of, and it's just a racially offensive movie in every category.
We haven't talked about Disaster Movie yet, have we?
Oh, I mean, what can we say that is possibly positive about the Salzburg ones? I mean, it's kind of like 365 Days. Both these are in here. They're known for being the unofficial Netflix Indian remake of 50 Shades, and 50 Shades I'm surprised is not on here, but these movies are frustrating because of how like tone deaf it is, even by pornographic standards. This is this is not a movie. This is
I had actually watched Disaster Movie about 15 years ago, and I remember it starts off with a caveman running around in like the long grass, and then he encounters Amy Winehouse, and Amy Winehouse is drinking a lot, and
very insensitive,
and so that's
portrayal.
clever because she was an alcoholic, so that was clever,
and they're all forced with their pop culture. Like it's like just like movie 43 was bad at just do you get it? These are bad in that they're humor that any of us could have thought up, but instead of just fine-tuning it, make it be kind of a witty like college newspaper for like National Lampoon or The Onion. It's more of a just that like these wouldn't even make them to even Mad TV or SNL.
No.
Like they're just like Monty Python, I'm sure, has, when they're all dead, if they're ever asked what is the biggest abomination, I'm sure they're going to bring these up at some point, because they are just, again, like you say, they are just going for the easiest of the easiest. And then not only is just the delivery just stale, you're just, I mean, the names and the even the stuff that they do, like David Carradine, I think, shows up in Epic Movie. I had the misfortune of seeing that in the theater because my brother wanted to see just a dumb comedy, and those were bad in that they went for just like the easiest blockbusters, and they're also like half the time they're just trying to get girls in bikinis. It's like, see, and it's like, but that's not funny. That's not, again, this is a Carl's Jr. commercial with a bunch of very forced, just petulant humor. It's just
it's like because we talked about Spring Break, I imagined it's like if you turned up with a huge van and just rounded up all the sort of people on the beach who are drinking and on drugs.
Why isn't Spring Breakers on here?
in From Justin to Kelly, just rounded them all up and then put them in a room with lots of like paper, and then said, hey, write a film. Then took in all the pieces of paper from them, and then literally just assembled them in any order, and then made Disaster Movie. That literally is. I mean, the very first word in the film is shit, and it's a bit like kind of that Blake Snyder thing where the opening image is kind of like emblematic of the entire film, and it really is just that word all the way through. I mean, it's I've never seen anything like it. But I mean, the thing about Disaster Movies, at least it actually sticks to its MO all the way through. It's unwavering. It never changes tone. It is literally just the same thing all the way through. And the only thing for me is making fun of the character from Juno, because I teach Juno, and I kind of thought, that's quite a good impression of Ellen Page or Ellis Page. So I mean, it's
just like anything
funny
that won awards. I forget. I think it was Scary Movie 3. They were making fun of like Eminem and 8 Mile, and it was just one of those. It's like but see, your humor is just the equivalent of kind of what the internet has bastardized now with like trailer reactions. I see 0 point in a trailer reaction because it both does and does not represent the movie. It represents
the trailer.
the trailer, yes.
Yeah, which is
half the time with Deadpool, they do the whole trailer within a trailer. They get all meta. And so I'm annoyed in that, yes, is like, with Juno, totally different movie, and a movie, it's just, like you say, it's just, it doesn't even get all that detailed with the spoofing. No. It's just, let's hire a lookalike.
Yeah.
And then let's just go from there. And then they were going for just very easy tabloid stuff. And again, they're focusing too much on just stuff that is just like second nature. Like, okay, I could say that.
Yeah.
But why did you feel the need to waste all this expensive money? And I think just seeing the bloopers for any of those awful movies that I had been subjected to, that again, half the time I would come across them by accident on TBS late at night. And it took me like 5 minutes before I realized, wait a minute, this is one of those spoof movies, It fooled me for like those 5 minutes, and the rest of the time it's just very, very schlocky production values, and even more annoying because they will get some talented comedians in there every once in a while, and you're just like, they don't deserve to be in this movie because they're not well used. They are not. I'm sure they didn't care. They're getting paid excellent money, but at the same time, you're just like, it's just no amount of malarkey can make me.
I in terms of inclusion into the bottom 100, I'm going to make a case for Love Actually.
Wow.
Because I mean, I think it's a truly appalling film.
You don't like it?
Absolutely appalling. So the idea is that you've got in Britain, you have an establishment within filmmaking and acting, which is basically made up of people who went to independent school and very often went to Oxford or Cambridge University. And so what you get is screenwriters and directors and actors who look at British life, English life, not really Scottish or Welsh, but sort of English life through their particular filter. So what we get then is pretty well off middle class people leading pretty well off middle class lives.
I think I just like the charming aspect of it, but I can see why the storyline wouldn't add up.
But it's your kind of metropolitan elite. It's your, people in government, people who are writers, people who are, like Four Weddings and a Funeral, people who sound like Hugh Grant, people who sound like, and the thing is that's not Britain. That's not the life that
I will admit it did probably influence a lot of people's misconceptions of other countries, given this international cast appeal. I'm gonna definitely put in maybe what's another one that I'm gonna definitely put in The Village, because like you say, that is a movie.
No, I'd be sad if you put The Village in. I love The Village.
Very well. It's just the ending. It's just that makes you wonder. It's like that. It's an ending that undoes it all. It's a movie that I have repeatedly. I will watch the first half and I will always stop it in the middle. It just loses me each and every time. It's like
not The Lady in the Water.
I could put that in there too.
That's worse. That's worse
in The Happening have audience. I just can't stand either of those. Definitely going to put in Titanic. That is definitely a movie which spent it all on the effects, and it's just where you're just going, James. Celine Dion is not theatrical music, and these people don't look like they even love each other. It's just a soap opera, and
and we knew what was going to happen in the end.
We knew what was going to happen. Like even the biggest history buff, like there's just nothing romantic about a 3 hour tragedy, and
ice always wins. I mean, that's
ice,
the thing,
ice baby. Yeah. We could definitely put Cool as Ice on here. That's definitely a bad movie. There's a bunch of other 4 or 5 star movies that are I could definitely give me. Here's the one that many people love, but I absolutely detest. I find it just bottom of the barrel trash. Definitely Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. That is.
All right. Yeah.
That is a buddy movie that has just always pissed me off, just from you were talking barbed wire earlier. That's another one that just feels like it was meant to be a USA Network or Spike TV show, and then they just added all the trashiest music and just there's another. I'm sure I could put a few other Andrew Dice Clay movies on here. I would definitely put Dark Knight Rises. That movie just cannot one up The Dark Knight. That movie just you want to talk CGI. I'm just like, okay, well, the fight scenes are very inconsistent and shaky, and then the whole putting a nuke underneath a city, that's where I'm just like, nope.
Yeah, that's been done before so many times.
It's been done, but it's also just like it I mean, the Dark Knight worked in that it tried to blend in heat type good versus evil with some Seven Sounds of the Lambs kind of moments, and this one is just like they would have been better off just reusing the Cillian Murphy Scarecrow instead of just this Darth Vader, wannabe. There's a bunch of other meta and experimental movies, but see, again, those are going to vary by any crowd. I definitely would put a lot of other superhero movies on here, like the 2015 Fantastic Four, or just a movie that, like you say, felt compromised, not only from it was under the misconception that there was a concept, but then there was, again, like you say, just so many people just not speaking the same language or failing to understand that, what kind of a movie they were making, or even having a Brett Ratner type who is practically making a good looking music video, but he thinks he's making top of the line, Spielberg or Scorsese movies. And it's like, no. What would give you that impression?
I don't know which I'm sure you'll be able to tell me, but I watched one of these Marvel films, and it was an airport, and there was a fight going on between these superheroes, and it went on for about 45 minutes, and I just watched it, and I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know who was on whose
probably
side.
Civil War, I think the third Captain America, and that's definitely my least favorite, that whole batch, because like you say, it just goes on way too long, and they're going to betray each other. And I
also think I mean, this is going to be controversial, but I also think the concept of superheroes themselves is quite tedious, because they're super, they're great. I mean, they can, and
they never end. They're going to keep going on until they don't make money at the box office. I'm like, then no movie needs more than like maybe 5, maybe 7 sequels. Otherwise, it's just the Nightmare on Elm Street or Star Wars effect, where it's just like, okay, you're injuring your brand, because at the end of the day, it's just a comic book, and you're going to collect the next issue. And
that's it.
There's so many people who I guarantee you would not care if it was not based on their favorite Saturday morning cartoon or serialized comic. It's just like, and I see other people who really love those movies, and yet they're so hard on so many other things. I'll definitely put Transformers 2 on here. Michael Bay can make a fun over the top blockbuster like The Rock or Armageddon, but that one I remember just seeing it in the theater and just being like, okay, none of this childish humor's landing. The effects are good, but they're frustrating because they, much like, again, some of these superhero movies, they are very inconsistently edited together to where the story just gets very murky. And obviously the actors don't have a presence and they're asked to get emotional, and that really hurts it. Iron Man 2, I'll definitely put on there, because like that one, like the first one was just trying to be a very straightforward, like billionaire who rediscovers his soul after he becomes robotic, and to just take it in a very mindless fashion, and then see Jon Favreau and Robert Downey disown it after the fact. And I was just like, but even before then, like I just saw the previews. I'm like, there's no story. It's just an excuse to introduce all these other characters and who's this Black Widow gal? Who cares? I'm just like, like you say, there's so many movies that are literally, you just feel like they are just there to create enough of a trailer to where they can just promote it at the Super Bowl. Hey, here's the newest Matrix knockoff. Here's the newest wannabe. Because like, this is going to be a hot take, but I really like movies that are even based on TV shows that still tell a coherent story. Like, I liked the recent Ray Donovan movie. I really dug the first Downton Abbey film because it was a good, approachable period drama. And
Downton Abbey.
I know.
Sorry, I laugh because, again, just like Love Actually, there's Britain, where half of us are servants and half of us are the aristocracy.
Yeah, it does play into those cliches. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of other American movies where, I mean, they'll just literally just go to town with the Southern and Northern accents.
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah.
everyone thinks everyone sounds like someone from Fargo or what have you. And I'm just like, no, not everybody here is a hillbilly. There's plenty of fucking idiots, though. You got that part down. I could put on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That is definitely. I
love that film. That's definitely the best of the four.
You don't like Indiana Jones?
I know that's so controversial, but I just really loved the fourth one. I just thought it was such a great film.
I think the visuals are very bad in that one, but don't get me wrong, I do laugh at it nonstop just because of the fridge scene. I was just a big fan of Treasure of the Sierra Madre and all those other dramas, so I think that one just got me into brutal World War II fighting, even though it does have some flag waving.
Doesn't everyone lose it because it's like Aliens at the end, and like that's not in keeping with the franchise? That everything else was like believable, but when Aliens
I mainly get annoyed by the Russians, even though Kate Blanchett's really good. I just get very annoyed by Ray Winstone's character, and he's a good actor. I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, we know he's just going to betray everyone.
But
it is a campy film,
isn't it?
though.
How can you put a Spielberg film into the bottom 100?
I mean, not everyone knocks it out of the park each time.
Yeah, but I mean, even a bad Spielberg film is like 10 times better than most other people.
That's true. What's a film by a great auteur that you're just like, yeah, it was going to happen one way or the other? Is like just a total misfire. Like, where do you stand on Heaven's Gate? I always like bringing this one up.
I always get it mixed up with Days of Heaven because there's one where there's a house in the middle of a field.
That's so true. Similar title and premise. I think I have seen the director's cut of Heaven's Gate, and I was not offended by it like I was, say, maybe a Battlefielder type extravaganza where someone had too much money but zero soul. There's a few other ones out there. I know there are.
We haven't even talked about Star Wars yet. We haven't even talked about Phantom Menace.
I love the Phantom Menace, but I will totally, as awful as Jar Jar is, I just find it weak. It's definitely weak, like, say, the Ewoks and Return of the Jedi and Attack of the Clones. I'll put Last Jedi on there for you if you want.
That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I was born in the late 60s. And so I watched Star Wars as a kid, and I kind of liked it. And I thought, it's like cowboys in space, and that's cool.
Buck Rogers.
Then, that's right. And I'd seen Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon as well because we had it on British.
And isn't
TV.
It funny how those were first, and yet they only got created because Star Wars was a surprise hit. So,
well, that's it. But the thing is that a couple of years after Star Wars, I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then to me that was a serious film. That was a serious
even
science fiction film.
Serious. Alien was serious. Star Trek. I definitely appreciate more because it's all about the sci-fi and racism and jingoism and politics, and so everyone else thinks it's just a stupid, cheesy guys in space. And Star Wars is a big issue because I've seen it more, and it introduced me to the craft of filmmaking, from editing to how music can make or break a movie. But then when you peel it away, it's just like, it's just a movie where everyone loved the characters more so than the very thin story.
Well, that's it. So I think the thing is that because I never really got into Star Wars. I mean, I'd seen the first three films kind of endlessly because they're kind of like, they're on and you watch them and it's like, oh yeah, that's the bit with the
it's popcorn.
And that's the bit with the thing walking along in the snow, and that's the bit where that happens. And then it was the next three, the next three films, which were the first three, of course. And then I kind of, because I wasn't all that into Star Wars, I kind of watched them in bits and thought, oh God, I'd have no idea what's going on. And then the last three came out, and I watched
you're definitely
those.
gonna be lost if you watch clips.
But I watched the last three films far more sort of critically and I enjoyed those. And then I said to my wife, what we got to do, because I still don't really get Star Wars. We're gonna have to start at the beginning with the Phantom Menace, and we're gonna have to watch those three, and then we're gonna have to watch Solo. And then we're going to have to watch
them in
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Order of appearance.
Yeah, so I looked it up on the internet about how you're supposed to do the sort of them in the right order. So we literally at the start of this year started with Phantom Menace and went through them in order, and we've just watched Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I think the next thing we got. I know
Force Awakens angered me because that was like the start of Abrams' just homage. I'm going to just take scenes from previous movies, but not do anything new with them. Like I know he does it with Super 8, but like Force Awakens, I wish I could say the same. It's annoying to me because it's just the Goonies and E.T., but it's not anything new. The main issue
if we didn't have Super 8, we would never have had Stranger Things. So
I could live without either of those. The main issue is my issue with Force Awakens is like, okay, we got no new ideas. We're gonna just make all this other stuff non-canon. And then we're going to just have a third Death Star. And I'm just like, well, so nothing new. You're just trying to hit on nostalgia for me. And that's what a movie just drives me crazy. Like I've had my issues with, you want to talk hot takes. I have had terrible experiences with these new Ghostbusters movies, new Mad Max, and some of these other tributes. But some of the newer throwbacks that I've actually liked was actually Terminator Dark Fate and Blade Runner 2049. I know that's a hot take too, because some people really find those boring. So I'm just like, I'm more kind of into just, I mean, everyone's still even mixed on Dune. Some people find it very boring. Other people love it because, being a fan of Denis Villeneuve. And I'm just thankful that any of his stuff isn't on here. He's kind of just all about, he is definitely a big filmmaker who seems to have the rare touch of being able to appeal to the blockbuster crowd and the art house crowd. And I think that's where a lot of these are just a big deal, in that everybody is so focused on how the movie looks. And like you say, each and every time they are asked, please correct the screenplay, please give a little extra. They just, instead of asking the screenwriter to come back, they always hire outside help. They always hire all these other guys to do uncredited rewrites. And it's like, you're not going to have a consistent movie with that many voices. I always know I'm in for a hell of a time watching a disaster like Anaconda or what have you, when there's like 5 writers attached. It's like, for a cheesy monster movie that has, why did you need 5 writers?
No, you're right. But I mean, I would probably put Phantom Menace in the bottom 100 because it is so tedious, and every time he says, I've got a bad feeling about this, it's just like, well, you keep saying that, and the dialogue is just appalling. I don't know why. George Lucas wrote it, didn't he?
I guess that's where I just was softened on how dialogue wasn't really typically good in serials. But my other issue is the more I rewatch any Star Wars movie, the more there's always like some bad dialogue, like scruffy looking nerf herder is said in Empire, which I otherwise consider a good movie. And but the main issue is definitely, and also just the acting, like just like Mark Hamill isn't so hot in like the first 20 minutes of the original one. And Phantom Menace is a bigger deal because, again, is like they're technically pretty sound, but yes, if you want to take individual scenes, there's some very awkward staging with a lot of his movies. And pretty much I just knew it was bound to just be better as a TV show, because with TV you have more time in your favor to develop a lot of stuff, so it can be more suspenseful. And that's his main problem. He's good with suspense, but he keeps you in suspense way too long to where it is easy for anyone to lose interest.
But I'd probably say even the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, Ewan McGregor's dialogue is still pretty flat, and it's just not it's not self-aware. There's no sense of irony, that it takes itself so seriously.
Yeah,
and I think that's the trouble with the Star Wars franchise.
Mandalorian was good in that it just chose to just say less and be more like a Western and expand the universe. And how ironic, by just focusing on expensive shots, they got something better out of it, instead of, like you say, anytime everyone tries to interact, this was already like, it was a surprise hit with the original because it wasn't supposed to do well. And yet it somehow made enough sense to where people kept going back, and Harrison Ford had charisma, even though he didn't have any, personal connection to the franchise. It's just, it basically was a lucky mistake. And then they just kind of kept riding on the coattails of the success instead of actually figuring out what made it tick. It's just like, because I think that's where Star Trek did better. They would hire a lot of key theater voice actors and stage performers and approach it just like a typical Western or cop show. And
that's right. Yeah.
It just, we're just happy to be wearing a yellow jumpsuit, or, just like Lost in Space. But the main issue is that, it's like, well, hell, I'll even put Star Trek Beyond on here.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll put all the Fast and Furious movies on here.
Oh, every single one of them,
because like those are no other movies where, like you say, is like 1 minute they're joking about themselves, but the joke isn't funny, and you're just like, well, are you the Expendables? Or are you?
Oh God! Don't get me started on the Expendables.
The Expendables is another shit sandwich where you're just like, they're making fun of all the '80s movies, and yet they're also kind of shitty half the time. But
there's a great bit in the Expendables where there's two of them staking out some place that they're supposed to be raiding or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and one says to the other, "What is wrong with this picture?"
Yes,
it's like the entire audience says everything. But I mean, Expendables. It's just, I mean, that's one of those, I don't know, the terrible ideas, the sort of cynical money making, like, let's load up the screen with as many action stars as we can. And Jason Statham.
There's some amusing throwbacks in the first one, I think, to the earlier Commando type movies, but part two gets way too cute for its own good. And Statham does not have his best moments in that, like he does in his solo work.
He's very good apparently. So I was going to say, he's very good apparently in his newest film. So to be fair to him, he's it's not man of.
Oh, I can't get into Wrath of Man. That was
Wrath of Man of Wrath of Man. Yeah, I thought he was quite good in that, but apparently his latest film, his acting jumps up several notches. So
which one is that?
I cannot remember what it's called now, but apparently it's pretty good. I think The Guardian in Britain, which is basically our sort of thermometer for whether anything is decent, said that he was quite good in it. So
I'll be careful. They gave Zero Dark 30 a 1 out of 5, but then again, I don't like that movie.
Actually, I've got Jason Statham not on my phone, literally on my phone, but I've got the Internet Movie Database.
Have you been mistaken for him?
Oh yeah, I get that a lot actually. Yeah, Jason Statham.
I could put a Jason Statham movie on here that was bad, probably.
So no, it wasn't The Meg, obviously, and it wasn't Wrath of Man.
Oh, Operation Fortune.
I think it was Operation Fortune, and that must be, because that's the latest one. But apparently he's quite good in it. It's Guy Ritchie again, isn't it? So,
we can put if we're gonna put Guy Ritchie on here, we can definitely put his new Aladdin or Swept Away.
Yeah, because he started off really well, and then he made that film with his wife, didn't he? And then but yeah, he redeemed himself with Rock and Roller, didn't he? And
I can't do that one.
Yeah, I see. Again, they're very British films, you see, and I
love British films. Like I love Blitz and everything. Yeah. I love the ID films. I love so many other ones. I just hate it when everyone just tries to just do knockoffs of Goodfellas or Pulp Fiction for the bit in time. I'm just like, you're just a copy of a copy of a copy. The main other issue is, it's kind of like how every other A-lister who's like in their 50s or 60s is trying to do a Man on Fire or Taken.
Yeah.
Some of them can do it, but there's plenty of them who have just been disastrous just because they never were an action star to begin with. So it's just like, well, I don't want to see you killing endless people for 70 minutes. I'd rather you do a very dramatically rewarding movie that would have in the earlier days probably be given to the likes of, say, maybe Jack Nicholson or Ed Harris, you know, instead of giving it to all these guys who are just like, see, I worked out. I'm like, and that's the gimmick. I'm like, well, that's not really much of a movie. That's just a mindless slugfest.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because obviously Pulp Fiction, you know, had a huge impact on the film industry in Britain. And then what you got was you got people like Guy Ritchie going back to the source material for British gangster films. So films like Get Carter and The Long Good Friday. And so what he did was he kind of remade these British gangster films, but with a sort of a Tarantino kind of knowing, sort of ironic sort of tone. Yeah, and that's
the one he did with Luc Besson was pretty bad though. Yeah,
pretty bad. But I mean,
so I would put that in the bottom 100. Well, I'm trying to remember the name of that. It's like a very confusing bank heist. It has Statham, Andre Benjamin, Ray Liotta.
Oh God, what was that? I can't remember now.
It was before Rock and Roll. It was like 05, and I think Roger Ebert surprisingly liked it, even though everyone else virtually hated it. It was very indecipherable. Mark Strong shows up near the end as a hitman. It's Revolver. That's the one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It is so indecipherable. Like 1 minute you're going, hey, isn't that guy from The Sopranos? Oh, he just got shot in the face. And then you're just trying to make sense.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. was good. That was a good film.
Ooh.
That's going to go in, isn't it? That's going to go in.
I'm not putting it in there, but that was one where I really liked the show. And I mean, the Avengers is already on here. So that, the 98 one is, they need to stop messing with the great British, you know, English spy shows. It's because it's like, those are already right themselves. I'm sure I could put in a James Bond movie like Moonraker where even the most hardcore fan is going to be hard pressed to find anything good about it, where you're just like, okay, they worried all about, again, just trying to be a cash in on Star Wars, and then they left literally the story just incomplete. Like there's virtually nothing. It's just Bond going, escaping, and then getting captured and escaping again. And you're just like, but really, what's going on? What who's trying to kill him? Who's trying to chase him? Oh, this guy who's in better movies like Munich.
I mean, the thing about Bond is, like I said, it is basically the same film every time. And so, you know, it either looks great or it's acted great or it's well scripted. So like Skyfall, for example, was an unusual Bond film in that it was actually a really good film as well as a good Bond film.
I think the villain's pretty good, but at the same time, my issue with the Craig ones is it tries so hard to be like Bourne Identity and Dark Knight that it doesn't feel like a Bond movie anymore. But so everyone's trying to copy each other. Like even Mission Impossible was trying to copy Bond after a while, when at the end of the day, it's just an excuse for Tom Cruise to do an impossible stunt. And but there's a good book, I think, and it's like Save the Cat, one of those screenwriting books, is like, if nothing changes, everything else around the character must change. And Bond's kind of unfortunately got very, very little small fish to fry, to where it's just like, okay, so at the end of the day, his boss or his newest girlfriend's just going to get killed at the end. So there's not very much suspense in that. It would literally, the only way you would actually shock someone is if he actually dies.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know if any of your listeners are going to have this as a massive spoiler, but perhaps we can say we're just about to give away the ending of the latest Bond film. They'll all have seen it, won't they?
I haven't seen it. I'm not.
Do you want me to say what happens in the end then of the latest Bond film?
I've heard a few different plot twists that make me want to see it less. So go ahead. Just
well, he dies.
Right.
Yeah. Really? So I hope I haven't spoiled it horribly for you.
In all
there,
fairness, everyone
Yeah.
hates it when I say this, but do you think they're all just agents with the same code name?
I mean,
It's the only way it makes sense to me, because there's no way
Yeah.
he met Judi Dench era back in the day. So it's just like,
well, the trouble with Bond is that obviously when they rebooted it, they had to go back to the beginning of Bond, but of course it wasn't the beginning of Bond, because the beginning of Bond
Right.
was in like the 1950s.
in the 60s and different type
Yeah.
of Navy then.
Yeah, but I mean, God knows what they're going to do with the new Bond, because having had Daniel Craig die at the end of No Time to Die, it's going to be hard to know, well, how do they reboot it then? Where
as long as they don't get, as long as they get different writers, because I think that's what also hurt it. They kept using the same ones who had worked with, Brosnan, and then bringing in different ones, and then trying to get around Craig's persona. Is like they need to. I would be fine if it was just called MI6 and they just dealt with people who have worked with the character, and then at the end we introduce a totally new guy with the codename Bond, and it could be a totally, once again, you got to go with an unknown, because that's the other thing too. They keep trying to attach people who have auditioned once upon a time, and it's just like, it's not going to work, because we know who they are and they're in their 60s. Like, I would have totally dug Clive Owen or Ian McGregor back in the day, but again, it's just they're getting up there in age, so, and they're better with crime comedies and historical dramas than they are hit and miss action movies. So it's like, I mean, like you say, I think we're all just getting a little too cynical, because we've just seen too many formulas repeated, and for good reason. Like I never look at a trailer nowadays, because I know not only will they bastardize it, but they will never do it justice. Like, I will see a fun horror slasher, but if I were to see the trailer, it would just be mindless, and same thing with action. They're going to show all the explosions, and sometimes even if they're practical, there's still just a fakeness to it, where it just feels overstaged. Or there's plenty of other movies we could go through, but this has been a really delight just having you on here, just talking about movies that I think all of us can agree, just no one's going to investigate anytime soon. That this is also, it was kind of disappointing in a way, because there used to be a lot of fun movies that everyone loved to kind of just mock. And unfortunately, some of those infamous movies are no longer here on the bottom 100. I could have sworn Showgirls was on here at one point, because that I got to say,
too,
I have tried, but fortunately, I saw it at a time where my brain was evolving, and then was realizing it was no longer just petulant crap. There's actual degree of quality, but I saw the edited VH1 version, so where everyone is clothed. So I had time to analyze the plot. I mean, like, finding out years later, it's kind of a satire. And I'm like, no, this is just a very bad exploitation movie. That's just wrong sauce all around. And Total Recall, it is not. But it's just so funny how Paul Verhoeven is one of my favorite filmmakers, who has done so many historical movies with a bit of dark wit to them, like Flesh and Blood, and I still need to see his latest, Benedetta. And it's like so funny how it works better in his native language.
Yes.
And yet, like you say, there was many of these which were like they would bring an Italian guy or German guy who did not speak any English, and studios who just wanted to hire him just because he's a new guy who they can boss around and pressure.
Absolutely,
and then hold his movie ransom. It's like, so if anything, these are movies that should have gone straight to Redbox, but or video stores, but somehow greed overcame the system. And had we had Me Too back in the day, or any of these other just policing what we got now, we could have probably avoided a lot of these unprofessional stewardship forces. But yet some of these still got through. They were gonna be made all because, again, they had, kind of like when Nike was first a thing, they had that draw in of they could sell out a whole stadium based on one giant name attached, and yet even with the best talents involved, they couldn't produce anything resembling a script or
Precisely, yeah.
So it is a little depressing because there used to be kind of, like you say, kind of a trashy, amusing factor to it, like Rocky Horror, where it changes by age or by audience. But now, unfortunately, a lot of these were just very forgettable. But I have to remind people that it exists.
I think the thing is that nowadays it's so easy to kind of to avoid making bad films, because I mean you've got
even just seeing the names attached, you're like, well, their last 5 movies not so hot, good actor, I'll just wait for them to be in a movie that people say are good. Like, I mean, we've mentioned some good actors here. I like Oscar Isaac and Idris Elba as actors, but not so hot on their movie choices. To me, a lot of their movies are almost as bad as, say, a typical film that The Rock or Kevin Hart are in, where it's like it's financial security, but it's not worthy of your talent.
No, that's right.
It's kind of like how nowadays I'm still hit and miss on even Sandra Bullock and Jamie Foxx, and then they produce these movies that are good, but no one saw. They didn't make any money. They went straight to Netflix, and you're like, well, I mean, I might give it a shot, but man, I still got to get the bad taste of your last 5 movies out of my mouth.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, you've got websites like theblacklist.com, you know, and if you're
these unsold
producer,
screenplays, and you're like, why can no one make it?
You can just look for whatever you want. So you can have a list of things that need to be in your film, and
you can crowdfund a movie.
Yeah, you can search the database and find exactly what you're looking for, because somebody will have written it. So, I mean,
you can go to Taste Search, I think it is, where you look for movies or shows that are similar to a category, and they go on specific, like tags. And so you're just like, okay, movies about the IRA, movies about Parliament, movies about this period or this historical settlement. And so, yes, you'll get, if you're looking for, say, maybe a war movie that's set in this setting, you're going to get just as many laughable, you know, mindless ones as you will probably a good one that's you know, in Hungary, that played once on Showtime that no one has seen but everyone should.
I mean, I suppose I've got a bit of skin in the game in that sense, because I've got one of my screenplays on the blacklist.com at the minute. So
congrats. No, really.
Oh, thank you.
That's stellar, because not just anyone can get noticed for that. And
it'd be nice to get a few more views though, but it's a film I wrote during lockdown. It's called The Lockdown. It's basically set during the 2003 SARS epidemic. So I didn't want to write anything about the current sort of pandemic, because I didn't think that would be right for a comedy film. So I set it in 2003. So you need to kind of think Bad Neighbors or Be Kind Rewind. So so basically you've got this perfect neighborhood in the suburbs in Boston, and then this horrible family come and move in, and the neighbors all get together, and all their house prices are dropping, and they've no idea how they're going to deal with these people, until one of them comes up with the idea of convincing them that there's a global pandemic and that they've got to go into lockdown. And so how does the neighborhood convince them that they've got to be in lockdown? So this is where the Be Kind Rewind kind of thing comes in, and the playing the parts. And I won't sort of spoil it completely, but it's I reckon it could be made for under 10 mil. So, you know, if anyone's
let's make it for 10,000.
It could be made for $10,000. Yeah. So if we get the guy in from Manos, The Hands of Fate.
No. Let's get an actual TV star who will work, you know, on the discount.
I mean, you know, but if anyone is interested, it is on the blacklist.com. So do have a look at it and let me know what you think.
By all means.
And all of your wonderful listeners as well, if they want to pile in and have a read of it too. But it is. It's a comedy, and it does sound.
We need more of that.
But it does have Act 3 has a heart of gold, so everyone will be weeping at the end, I'm sure, with laughter and you know, emotion too. So I think I've really sold it, haven't I?
That's pretty good. I want to see this.
Cool. Well, you know, like I say, 10 mil, and we can make it happen. At least. And there won't be any CGI in it at all.
No, it's going to go to the best of the best actors.
I think the most expensive thing in it would be a drone helicopter. That's basically it.
There you go, to get those kind of shots. And at least you can justify it, like all these other guys.
Oh, definitely. It does have better dialogue in it than the Phantom Menace. I'll definitely say
even
that.
Troll 2, where
even Troll 2, yeah,
where people are literally just shouting out their lines when they're supposed to just be dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, this has been a delight. Anything else you want to promote before we go?
I don't really have anything else to promote. I'm still involved in the Sacred Cow podcast, which is what I was involved in last time. We've taken a bit of a break from it, so the first 3 seasons are still on Acast, iTunes, TuneIn, and various other platforms. And our Daniel O'Donnell episode is on indiedropping.com. But we've got a couple of episodes in the pipeline, but like I say, it's real life kind of intervenes, and then all of a sudden you're not as busy as you were before. But yeah, so if you want to check out some pretty hot comedy, then definitely the Sacred Cow podcast is a place to go to. I don't have anything else to. I'm selling some kittens at the minute. I don't know if that counts as a plug.
Oh well, I mean, I hope they get a home.
Yeah, we got
idiots who will buy animals but not know that it means responsibility.
I mean, obviously, if your listeners in the States are interested, obviously we could FedEx them over if you like. So we'll just we'll cut holes in the box, and stick a bit of cat food in with them, see if they last the journey. But we don't accept returns, unfortunately. So, but they're very cute kittens. So I suppose that is something else I can plug there. But I hope you don't get deluged with people saying how awful it is that British people are happy to sell kittens via FedEx. Yeah, no, that's not. I am only
all
joking.
British people are pigs. It's like, don't you mean Americans?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we kill them first before we send them, because otherwise it would just be cruel. So
right?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man, thanks for being on here and delivering some great humor.
Yeah, and I hope everything turns out all right in your neck of the woods with politics and everything else. I'm
so done with it. I'm just like keeping my head low and just hoping that they don't de-educate all these schools.
Well, I think that the trouble is that people are now looking on Amnesty International to see whether or not the States is a viable holiday destination. I mean, I've had conversations with people who've said, is it safe to go to the States on holiday? And I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous to be thinking like that. But I mean, there are people who seriously saying, well, I don't really want to go to the States until all of this is over. But
right,
I'm sure it can't be that bad. But I mean, it's it's a sad state of affairs.
Well, and especially when it gets to where it just seems like everyone wants to contradict each other. And it used to be there were ways to change the conversation, but now there's so much misinformation to where it's like you just already know who you're not inviting over to your place, period. Whether it's Thanksgiving or not, it's like I practically cannot talk to this person. They watch Fox News all day. They believe InfoWars. It's already bad enough with Julian Assange, where it's like he's showing people who are doing unprofessional things, but then he's not only exploiting them, but then he's acting like he's any different. And it's like, you've done shady stuff your own self, dude. You just make money off it. And so we just all, I'm just done with it. I'm just like, it used to go back to just the first rule of debate. Don't make it personal, have a point, make your 3 points, and then be done with it like an essay. And unfortunately, no one seems to have conjured up any of that. It's all gone down to is like, well, I think you're fat and stupid. It's like, well, that's not a point. That's Richard Hawes, I don't know if you listen to the DTV Digest. He reviews all kinds of short films and everything. And his fun factor when he goes on to all these bizarre good or bad indies is that he loves to just, or movies that went theatrical overseas, but Britain got, direct to video here or make for TV. He loves just deciphering a movie where is like at the end of the day, I'm not worried about the IMDb rating. I'm worried about what do I feel? And if I feel nothing, then that's just bad enough. And I think everyone, when they're making a debate, they go on their gut instinct. They go on just what they're feeling in the moment, and they are not thinking. And we unfortunately have had an increase in people who kind of have tried to popularize like being a douche is okay. It's like, well, no, it's not. Nothing's changed. Just saying, I don't care what anyone else feels, and if they don't got a problem, they can go F themselves. I'm like, well, so basically I can't have a conversation with you at all.
No. I think what people should do is just get together, get Birdemic out on DVD and just sit down and have a laugh and enjoy themselves.
And know how things can get so much worse.
Yeah, and then everyone will be friends again. Get some chips and dips out and just
remember when we're living this.
Yeah, and then everyone can come together and like forget their differences. There you go. I've solved everything now. No.
You've solved it all, my dude.
There you
Thank
go.
you ever so much for being on
That's
here.
All right.
And
it's been brilliant. Thank you very much.
You be safe.
I will be. You too.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.